Do you ever get this thought out of nowhere? You're not doing anything important, nothing big is happening. Maybe you're just lying in bed, scrolling without really seeing anything, or staring at the ceiling like your mind is somewhere else. And then it hits you. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. I miss who I used to be. And the strange part is, nothing actually happened in that moment. No argument, no bad news, no clear reason. But somehow, it feels heavy. Like you just remembered something important that you didn't even realize you lost. So you sit with it and you start thinking, when did this even happen? Because you weren't always like this. You didn't always overthink every message before sending it. You didn't always replay conversations in your head at night, wondering if you said something wrong. You didn't always feel this tired, even on days when you barely did anything. There was a version of you who laughed without checking who was watching, who spoke without filtering every word, who cared without calculating the outcome. You trusted people without preparing yourself for disappointment. You were softer, not weak, just open. And now you notice it. You pause before speaking. You think twice before trusting. You hold parts of yourself back automatically, not because you want to, but because something in you learned to. And the scary part is, you don't even remember the exact moment it changed, because it didn't happen all at once. It was small things, moments that didn't feel important at the time, but stayed with you longer than you realized. Maybe it was something simple. You were excited about something, really excited. You shared it with someone, expecting them to understand or at least smile with you, but instead, they laughed. Not in a cruel way, just enough to make you feel a little stupid for caring. So you laughed too. You brushed it off. But something shifted that day. You didn't stop feeling excited. You just stopped showing it as much. Or maybe it was the first time you opened up to someone. You trusted them with something real, something that actually mattered to you. And later, you realized it was used against you. After that, you didn't stop having feelings. You just stopped sharing them so easily, and then you started noticing something else. People getting ahead, not because they were kind, but because they were careful, strategic, guarded, and slowly, without even deciding to, you started adjusting. You told yourself, I'm just learning. I'm just growing. This is how the real world works. But no one tells you this part. Sometimes what we call growth is actually just self-protection in disguise. And over time, that protection becomes your personality. You become quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because a part of you keeps asking, what's the point? If no one really listens anyway, you become distant, not because you don't care, but because caring started to feel risky. And one day, you catch yourself thinking, this doesn't feel like me anymore. And then comes this feeling that's hard to explain, but if you felt it, you know exactly what it is. It feels like you were cheated because you did everything right. You were kind, you were real, you were genuine, and somehow that version of you didn't win. Instead, you learned to hold back, to stay guarded, to think twice before being yourself. No one sat you down and told you to change. Life just showed you over and over again. Be less open, be less trusting, be less you, and you adapted. Because that's what humans do. We adapt to survive. But here's the part that hurts the most. When you adapt long enough, you stop recognizing who you adapted for. You look at yourself and think, how did I become this? And the worst part? It feels normal. I've felt that too, more than I like to admit. There was a time when I started noticing small changes in myself. I stopped reaching out first. I told myself I was protecting my peace. But if I'm being honest, I was just scared. Scared of being ignored. Scared of being too much. Scared of caring more than the other person. I stopped doing things I used to love. Not because I didn't enjoy them anymore, but because they didn't feel useful. Everything had to make sense. Everything had to have a purpose. From the outside, it looked like growth, like discipline, like maturity, but inside, it felt empty. And I remember one night, I came across something old, something I had written years ago. It said, I hope I never lose the ability to be soft. And that line hit harder than anything else, because I realized something in that moment. I didn't lose it overnight. I didn't wake up one day and become someone else. I slowly let it go, piece by piece, moment by moment, not because I wanted to, but because I thought I had to. And that's when I felt it again, that quiet thought, I miss who I used to be. But here's something I didn't understand back then, and maybe you don't either. You didn't lose that person. You adapted. Every part of you that changed had a reason. You became quieter because you were tired of not being heard. You became more distant because being close started to hurt. You became more careful because you learned not everyone is safe. That's not failure, that's survival. And maybe no one ever told you this, but it matters. You weren't wrong for changing, but at the same time, it's okay to miss who you were, because that version of you was real. And here's the part most people get wrong. They think that version is gone forever, but it's not gone. It's just buried under everything you had to go through. And buried doesn't mean lost. It just means you haven't gone back to it yet. But going back doesn't mean becoming naive again. It doesn't mean trusting everyone. It doesn't mean ignoring what you learned. It means something better. It means building a version of yourself that keeps both the softness you started with and the strength you had to learn. Because maybe the goal was never to go back. Maybe the goal is to move forward without losing yourself in the process. So, start small. Do one thing you used to love. Without thinking about how it looks. Say what you feel without over-editing it. Care a little, even if it feels uncomfortable. Not for the world, for you. Because the truth is, the world didn't completely change you. It just convinced you to hide parts of yourself, and you can choose to bring them back. Slowly, imperfectly, but intentionally. Maybe one day you won't say, I miss who I used to be. You'll say, I understand who I became. And maybe even, I'm starting to like who I'm becoming. So don't rush it, don't force it, and don't hate yourself for changing. You did what you had to do. Now, you have to decide what parts of you are worth bringing back, because they're still there, waiting, not to make you who you were, but to help you become someone stronger, someone real, someone whole, and maybe someone who doesn't just miss themselves anymore, but finally feels like they're coming back. If this felt a little too real, just comment, felt this. You're not alone.